Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. I'm still waiting for the kickstart ramp. The place I ordered it from didn't have it in stock, so I've ordered another one. But I'm going to make a start today on stripping down. It's just basically footboard runner, exhaust, side panel have to come off, and side of the engine, kickstart side. Depending on how I do with time, I'll take gearbox, clutch out. It's got an AF cassette clutch in it, and we need that tool to hold it. This is the Mark 1 tool, which is a lot stronger than the last one we bought and fitted into Andrew's scooter, which you've seen on a different video. That one there was very thin and gave way very easy, talking it up to 50 odd pounds, and that gave way, so we ended up using this one on Andrew's scooter. So obviously I need this with my own anyway, so he's not got a problem because I've always got a tool, although the other tool was ruined, but hey ho, these things happen. So as I say, what we're going to be doing today is panel off, the rear running board off, the exhaust off. I'll cut in when I've got the floorboards off because they're only held in with a couple of screws. It's not worth wasting tons and tons of time just videoing stuff like that. We're more interested in the engine than we are the ancillaries, so I'll get that done, and I might chop in bit by bit as I get along. We'll see how it goes. So right, excuse me, now we've got the footboard off. We can see we've got two bolts. There's one on the bottom there, and inside here there's one that clamps onto the downpipe. The engine itself was built by AF Race Speed to a previous guy that I bought the scooter from. All I've done to the engine is added the cassette clutch, because the clutch that was actually fitted to it, you needed to be Achilles to actually do anything with it. They were new casings. They're marked up with AF's own serial numbers and engine numbers, so I'd imagine that they can sort of trace what they've done to it and who bought it, etc., although I've got all the receipts for that anyway. So I'm going to take the exhaust off next, and then we'll be ready to take the side of the engine off, drain the oil obviously first. So I'll just take the exhaust off and then we'll go from there. Right, the exhaust's off. What I need to do now is take the clutch cable, which is over there, off. You just need to put a spanner on here, bring the clutch in and just remove the cable. We don't need to touch any gear cables or any other cables. We're going to need an Allen key to drain and to fill up if we when we get round to filling it up. I normally fill up from the top anyway. I've got new gaskets etc. to go on. Just really waiting for the kickstart ramp, and I'm in two minds whether to buy a new side casing. The new uni ones that are on the market, they come pre-drilled. It can save you a lot of grief, I suppose, just putting the ramp onto it. This is the still original one. Nothing wrong with them, it's just I don't know until I take it off whether it's been drilled or not, and you need a drill press etc. to do it dead level. So what I'm going to do is just get the cable off now, that cable, and then we'll get the side of the engine off, drained first obviously, and then I'll cut back in again. Another thing to do is to check this is a magnet, and swarf etc. gets pulled onto that. This one I've not cleaned because I don't want to hide anything. It's not too bad. There's a little few bits and bobs on it, which you'd expect, especially on a new engine build. You know, there's gears and everything that have got a bed in. Oh, I mean, I've wiped it my hands, and to be honest with you, I can't see anything coming off at all. Yeah, there's little tiny bits which I'd expect, and when I say tiny bits I mean like metal flake, which is totally acceptable. Clean that off obviously, because that's your indication if your engine is falling apart etc., imploding on itself. as you can probably make out or not. There's a few little metallic bits and bobs like metal flake. There's no what they call fingernails, which are long metal rods basically that you get chip gears, etc. And I've just cleaned that off. In actual fact, I've just found one chip. That's called a fingernail, so we will investigate and say, right, put that on there. It's still draining out, so I'm going to start on the engine casing nuts, get them off so it's ready to open up. The oil itself looks pretty good. I haven't seen any big sort of debris coming out of that, so we'll have a look. I'm just going to take the side of the engine off and we'll be back on again. Right, just taking the last nut out and the side casing then. I've just got to take this one out. Right. Still actually on there, but stud might be coming out, that's no problem anyway. Yes, it is. Right, so that's the last one. Side of the engine just rattle a slight bit, and we have the side of the engine off. This one's been ground down. AF must have done that for the kickstart problems that they have where they rub on the clutch. So I'm just going to stick that over there and get tidied up and we'll start again. Right, there is a slight wear on one side of the outer clutch. These are prone to running slightly pulled, but that should still clear. I'll have to check the spring tensions, etc. when I take it apart. But this is exactly how AF built it, apart from I put the clutch in, the cassette clutch in and the crown wheel, and checked all the chain, etc. But the reason why I'm taking it apart is this ramp here is too far. They're very hard to align, and I'm getting too far travel on my kickstart before it engages to kick over. This is quite a common problem apparently with GPs, and you need to cut there and that, basically that mount there off. Some people say that when you kick, because the weight of the kickstarters on here, it can end up loosening the gearbox end plates. They probably build a lot more engines than me and see different people that over the years build them differently, and I'll leave it at that. Everyone's got their own idea how to build an engine, what's safe, etc. Some last for years and some last for 5 minutes, so who am I to criticise? I'll try and do what I want to do, which is build it as an engine I don't really have to take apart. I mean, this engine's not been apart for 2+ years at least, and it was built a year on top of that, so we're talking about a 3-year-old engine here, and it's still pretty good nick. So nothing appears to be loose, which is a good thing. Gears are all nice and tight. Yeah, it's got an AF Racing crank in it as well. Like I say, I didn't build the engine, it was all spec'd up and built for a previous owner by AF, but they had the hard standard type 5-plate clutch on there, and I just found it was killing my hands pulling it in. So I went for this clutch, which it's a lot better, but again, people say that these should be a lot easier, and I'm finding this one's harder than my friend's cassette clutch that he's got. And again, I noticed that Sticky put a video on a while ago that it got no damage. I cannot see an ounce of damage on that clutch, and it's been used for 2 years, which is quite amazing really, when you compare it to a standard normal clutch. I mean, this is a 6 plate, sorry, as opposed to the standard 4 or the 5 which was in it. I don't know a lot about them. It was new to the market when I bought it, and it was one of them where they'd used it in their racing bikes, and I can see why if there's no damage like that. Can't recommend it enough, to be honest. This engine's not putting out, you know, a Ferrari amount of power. It's good enough. It goes when I open it up. It's plenty fast enough for me. I'm no racer, so I'm just wondering if one of them bits of metal was from the clutch there, because it's definitely been rubbing, even though you couldn't hear it when it was running, which is a bit weird. Whether that's the springs or the screws have come loose over time, I don't know. But it's I'll get the feeler gauges etc on it. I'll get some measurements done and just make sure that that is flat before I start taking it apart. It's held in these a combination of these 3 holes go in that tool that I showed you earlier to hold it. That just clips off, that spins. So it's like an upgrade to a GP clutch, and I must admit, apart from it is still marginally hard to pull. That could be the spring choice that AF had put in it prior to sending it out to me. I don't know. You know, people have different ideas of what power they want out of a bike, etc. And AF probably build them to what people ask for, basically. So yeah, but I'm pretty happy with that. But I have seen that they do run a bit concentric in quite a few posts. So, but like I say, I'll get my meter out and have a look and see. It doesn't look like it's stepped at all, to be honest. I mean, but how can you tell? How can you tell just looking? So, right, be back in a minute. Right, I'm just going to try and get the clutch nut out. I've measured it and it is slightly out on one side, so I will be addressing that when I come to rebuild the clutch itself. So I'll put the holder in. Just let the engine cases take a strain. There you go. One bolt loosening off. As I say, the one that came with Andrew's clutch was a pretty useless tool, to be honest. Very thin, almost designed for one use and throw away, which will leave you in the lurch when you're trying to get your clutch back out and back in again in the future. In business there. Yeah, that's out. The clutch should just pull straight out. It's a really nice piece of kit, actually. And we want our washer. Keep them safe. As I say, there's no wear on that clutch at all. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And screws back up there. Sometimes these come off and sometimes they don't. You have to undo the chain adjusters. I'll see if I can get that one out. It's all away. Just once it gets off the shaft, see, it'll just come off. And again, that's lightened AF race speed, 47 tooth. It's running, as far as I know, a standard GP, Indian GP 200 gearbox. definitely 4-speed. It's not nothing special or whatever. It's got a bigger tyre on it. In fact, I don't think you can go any wider than what I've got on there, so like a tractor going down the road. But like I say, there is no damage whatsoever anywhere there. Good bit of kit. Washer below that needs to come off and keep him safe. I'm just going to put the clutch back into there. That's it. I will be undoing that and having a look, see if there's any wear on the clutch plates themselves, but it looks fine. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to clean off here all the last bits of oil. Then I'm going to jack up the bottom of the engine and take the gearbox out. It's this device here that we need to cut off there and replace that with the SX Li, not Li but SX GT style, which is like a hook. It's like shaped like that rather than a hole within a bracket. I prefer them. A little bit easier to set up. A, because you're doing it on the kickstart side, you're not doing it on this side. These wear, and the kickstart starts touching, so you move your lever around, then it's not engaging in enough time. Might engage there and only give you that amount of kick, whereas you want really as much of that as possible. Longer the kick. I mean, you often see guys putting, and I'm guilty of it myself, leaning the bike over and kicking it off when it's off the stand like that. It just gives you from there up a little bit more travel and engagement, where you're not hitting the floor, you're going past where it would normally stop. Right, so what I'll do now is I'll just stop it for a while, put my jack under there. There is a tool that goes in here. Personally, I don't like it for jobs like this. I think you're better off with a proper jack. I've got like a trolley jack that I use with a rag under it so it doesn't damage anything. Takes the weight completely off. I'm not taking the wheel and the hub off, the lay shaft staying in, or I'd have to re-shim the gearbox, etc. That doesn't feel like there's any play. I will get the feeler gauges in. It's pretty good actually, really good. So I've got to take out these nuts and then take that plate off, and then it's ready for trimming down basically. Because these are supposed to be all lined up for the lay shaft, I wouldn't recommend, I mean, I don't know about these. They always say with Vespas don't use two separate halves of an engine for that reason. They're all machined aligned, but you know, we're talking about machines aligning it, not humans, and I don't know. I just think that gap there and that gap there have got to be the same on every manufactured bike within a certain tolerance. So I could be wrong, I could be right, I don't know. Like I say, you only speak as you find. I find that it's you know, I could probably just cut that off, or even change that to an Li plate, re-shim the gearbox, but I don't need to in this case because I'm reusing that. Once I check the bearings, etc., obviously, but this is the next part that's going to come off. When you got these bolts off, there's 2 screw holes at the back there, and you just screw some screws in there and use a screwdriver just to keep it level basically, and it should prise off straight away. Then your gears, and you've got to watch out for this shim here. There's shims in the Christmas tree, etc. You've got to look, we've got to basically watch out for anything falling out, because you've got a pot of oil there and you don't want to be fishing into that if you can help it. I mean, the kickstart should kick there. I would say that's pretty good. So whether it's the shaft that's causing the problems on my GP, because you're looking at basically 7 o'clock for it to start, which I would say that's probably bang on. You're putting your kickstart right on the edge there. I would say that's probably, this end is probably spot on, and I've got a pretty ropey kickstart shaft. This is the problem with some of the Indian spares that You know, this would have been an engine sent from India and then cobbled together by AF with their best, what they've got in stock basically when they're building an engine. So the chip from the little fingernail is probably off there because there's a sharp edge there. So the kickstart ramp's been moving on that, but that's what they say. This keeps hitting and loosening. You're basically putting strain here, so it's doing this every time you kick. Shouldn't do if it's tightened up properly, and I don't think Innocenti would have bodged anything. They're pretty good. So we'll be cutting, like I say, across there and finishing it up. I am actually surprised that that's rusty in there a bit. But I don't know how long it was standing around before it was built. You don't know that as a non-builder stroke non-buyer, so yeah. Looks like that's been welded. That's got a nylon chain guide. I don't even know how long the chain is. I'll count that and we'll do that on live recording because it's just boring for people, but I'll find out what the chain is, what the sprocket is. I'm pretty certain it's standard GP200 gearing on it, and like I say, when I open it up I find it easily fast enough for me. You know, I'm not trying to win any races or anything, it's just keeping up with modern traffic if I need to. I still prefer the classic non-tuned scooters, but you know, it's each to their own. I bought this because of its price, so it was worth the money. I've sorted out most of the problems that I found with the bike. Forks, bearings were missing, and you know, silly little things like that where it had been just chucked together, and screws, plastic screws. I've rewired it, I put all new cables in it, just the general sort of thing. Put the clutch in it, as you could see what I've just pulled out. I just need to check them springs in that to see if they are still straight. I can't see why suddenly it would have gone concentric. Probably give AF a ring and see what they say about it tomorrow. It's Sunday today. Like I say, I haven't got any problem looking at anything there. It looks good. The gears look good. I mean, I'll show them when they come out. It's pretty straightforward. Like I say, it's just these 11mm heads, and just put my screw socket. You can use bolts, etc. I've never bought the, you know, the different like T drivers. Never bought them. There's some tools where you don't really need. It's just if you want to be I would say just a Lambretta man, then fair enough, go and get them. But any correct tool it's the correct way of doing it, I suppose. But I've always been brought up to use two bolts in there and just take your time doing it slowly. You know, one bolt at a time, one bolt at a time, one bolt at a time, and it does come off. Like I say, sometimes you have to prise slightly there because these can be tight on the lay shaft. They shouldn't be, they should be running, but they do seem to you know, clag up a bit, and they are, especially in the older sort of Innocenti bikes, they can be quite a sod to get these off. Some people put a screwdriver in that bit. I would sort of refrain from using any screwdrivers if you can help it. I mean, with the GP type, you can get behind there and pull it as well, so you know, your bolts are there and you can pull it there. Like I say, it's each to their own. I'm not trying to say anybody's right or wrong. It's just how you find them. I've built quite a few engines, and I've come to do it my own way, and I suppose everybody else comes to do it their own way themselves, you know. That's the beauty of running a scooter. You know, we're not going to scooter shops, or some of us do, some of us don't. I mean, I'm not saying that if the scope of works is outside your knowledge, then definitely go to a scooter shop. But if you're planning on looking after your own engine, I always think, I know what's in the engine if I take it apart and I build it. I know what bearings I've used, I know what oil seals I've used. You know, no disrespect to dealers, they've got to do a job and make money. Where you cock up say a bearing, you just order another one. You know, okay, they can change a bearing as well. I'm not saying that they would no, I wouldn't expect any dealer to or shop to let a scooter out with dodgy bearings on it. But you know what I'm saying, it's, if you make a mistake and you're worried, even if it's within scope of working, like an oil seal's not sitting properly, or you don't think it, you know, you can quite, there's no, the easiest way to sort of explain what I'm trying to say is it's only hitting your pocket to change a bearing or an oil seal, etc., or, you know, a new gearbox. You can experiment yourself. Whereas you know, you would take it to a shop and say, I want, and they would deliver as best they can to what you have asked for. Now they might see something, and I've known myself when I've been in scooter shops where, you know, they've rung up a customer and said, you know, this is no good, you need to replace that, no, stick that in there. And then, you know, sort of a couple of weeks later or a month later, you know, they're calling the dealer from hell to high water that they don't know what they're doing, etc. When, you know, it's the old adage as well, you've got a tuned up scooter, the easiest thing to do is keep checking your spark plug, make sure that it's running right. And it's your life at the end of the day, and it's also your money. No good holding a piston because you couldn't be bothered to take a spark plug out and just check it. It's quite easy. You should have the tools to do that on your bike while you're running around, and obviously take time and run them in, etc. I sound like I'm going to be a bit of a teacher here, but it's, you know, not trying to teach anybody to suck eggs. It's just you know, it's hard-earned cash at the end of the day, and silly little things can make it a lot better. Like I say, this doesn't look like there's anything wrong with that position wise, but I want it to work and just go on and work from day one. Now with the kickstart side I've got on the shaft, there are different shafts, some are better than others, and my experience with Indian GPs is not as good as, say, an Italian GP, which they always seem to be 99.9% machined correctly, built properly. I wouldn't say top quality spares, because I consider a lot of their spares that came from the factory as being reject spares, but, you know, they're generally of a high quality, keeping their name, you know, which still survives to this day. So I'm going to get the Gearbox end plate off anyway, because I'm just rabbiting on here and I'll be boring everybody to tears. I mean, if you've got any comments, any help, suggestions, I'm always willing to learn. I don't know everything, like I say, I know what I know. I've built quite a few engines and I'm always willing to learn. It's my hobby. I don't earn any money out of this hobby as such. I do build a couple of things for friends and do the odd job here and there, but I don't profess to be a you know, like a dealer or a shop. I don't make my living out of doing scooters, and as much as I could buy a ramp, etc., to make my life a lot easier, it's no good buying all these equipment, etc., when I'm trying to show you what you can do laying on the ground, basically, and, you know, in a shed or outside. On a dry day you could do all of this outside, no problem at all. A ramp is ideal, but, you know, you're talking maybe 200 quid upwards a second-hand one. And I've seen scooters myself fall off ramps before for no reason. It's almost like they're possessed. Something lets go and they fall over, and I've never had a scooter fall over when it's been on its stand on the floor. So maybe it's me, I don't know. I could quite easily, I've got room now for the first time in my life to actually buy a ramp and stick it in my shed and use it. And as you get older, I suppose it would make sense, but to me it's just not a waste of money. It's just an extravagant tool that is going to be in my way 90% of the time, because sometimes I have two scooters in this shed, and it is not a great deal of room to get around then. So you can imagine trying to do like two jobs at once while you're waiting for parts, etc., and you're getting your scooters ready for the next season, and you've got a great big stand in the way. You know, it's fair enough, if I had a workshop and I was doing this for a living, I wouldn't hesitate, I'd buy one straight away, and I would recommend, if you've got the space, buy one. It just saves a whole lot of grief. You can sit working sat down. The scooter itself will be, you know, 4 foot in the air, 3'6", 4 foot in the air. Everything is in front of you. as opposed to you're leaning down. Like when I was taking these bolts out, I missed that one, and I missed the one behind there. I thought I'd taken them out. Silly things like that can save you a whole lot of time, because you're actually looking directly in, as opposed to down, or you're laying and looking directly in. Like I say, I normally take engines out when I build them anyway. It's just, this is just a mod to make it starting better. It's running fine, and I'm a great believer, if it's running fine, leave it alone. It probably needs another about 300-400 miles running on it, and I can start leaning the carburetor off. It's running slightly rich at the moment, but while running in, I prefer that myself. You know, you'll have racers saying it's not necessary, run it for a couple of 100 miles and then lean it off and, you know, take it easy, etc. But I don't want to be 70 miles away from home and a whole piston, etc. So I take things gently, respect what's going on. You know, these scooters are not designed to be running 30-40 brake horsepower, etc. I'm not saying this one is. You probably get 25, something like that, top whack out of the engine I've got here, but it does go. Like I say, it moves. Whether that's the gearing and the size of the tires, I don't know. It was a bolt package that somebody else had obviously specified. Like I said before with AF, they've specified it, and I've inherited it, and I've just trying to you know, take the hard edges off of it and make it more easier to start on the stand. You know, you shouldn't have to tilt it over occasionally. When this engine's warm, it starts absolutely first time. It can take 5 or 6 times when it's stone bang cold. It tends to get not used a lot. It tends to be, you know, living a life of Riley sat in my garage normally. It's just next year I want to try and get out on it and give it a few miles and decide whether I want to keep it or not, because I might be selling it yet. I don't know. I've got some other projects that will be materialising themselves next year with a bit of luck, and one of them's an original 1965 TV200, so that'll make good watching for everybody, because it's been previously stripped down by the guy who actually bought it from the original owner. Decided to strip down an original bike, which was, apart from a couple of dings, totally 100% original. I'll have to dig out the video and stick that on so you can see, you know, which I consider to be a bit of a crime taking it apart, but, you know, each their own. He owned it, it was his idea. You know, they're only once original, and restorations of something like that, when they're not necessary, I mean, you know, I'm talking about somebody like Dent Doctor coming along, chips away, somebody like that, and just straightening the kickstart panel, kickstart side panel, even get my teeth put in, and that side of the leg shield. The guy used to park his car against the scooter, believe it or not. I mean, they were a lot cheaper in them days, but can you imagine that on an original TV200, where it was just left in a garage completely mint as the day it was born, got paperwork with it, etc. So and it's one of the last ones, which were the pre SX200. You get a lot of people saying that they're a different scooter than the TV, but you know, the SX evolved from the TV. We'll go through different bits and bobs and switches, etc. And you know, everybody's got their own opinions, but you know, I've had probably 20 TV200s, spanning from one of the first ones that was imported into the country, as I say, right up to this 1965 one, which was one of the last ones made in Italy prior to the launch of the SX200 in 1966. D-Reg, this is a C-Reg. I've had D-Reg TV200s, but they've been built in 1964. All the frame numbers tell you when they're built. In Italy, they've got their year stamp on them. It's only like SXs, etc., that went away from that, but the TV was pretty straightforward. 52, 53, 54, 55, and there should be none that I've come across anyway higher than 55. The Spanish then carried on with the 5s on their jets and what have you. So although they marked them SX200 and LI, They did use they followed on from Innocenti's numbers, albeit with a big gap. Yeah, but we'll get onto that in the future. I'm going to take that off, take the end plate off, drop the gears out, and make sure all of that's okay. Which I'm not doubting anything's wrong. I mean, the chain's mint. Everything looks really good in there. Yeah, so I'll just turn off for a minute while I get that out. Right, I've got the gearbox end plate off. Excuse me again. A bit cold today in the shed. What I've also done in the meantime is I've taken the clutch apart, and I found that one of the springs wasn't seated correctly, so the clutch wasn't actually dead flat when it was moving in and out. Using a Vespa clutch compressor, it's now moving straight in and out, so hopefully that'll get that problem where it was wearing slightly on the kickstart gone, because it should be running true now, not slightly out. Just one of the springs was just sitting a little bit high. These are the sort of silly little things that you find when you strip a bike down. When we've got shims, we've got bearings still in. I'm going to do that probably tomorrow. Well, can't get up to a lot really when I haven't got the parts, so what I'll probably do is I'll make up my mind tonight whether I'm going to modify the existing kickstart side. If I show you what you need to do, just go and get the existing kickstart side. That's weigh a ton. Like where you can see it on the kickstart side, on an LI, SX, etc. These are drilled out and they're tapped 6mm M6, and the little ramp sits on here. The hook basically pushes that in, so your kickstart teeth don't come out until that's where the little filing was from. I can see it's just chipped off the edge of the kickstart there. So all you need to do really is drill them, tap them out M6, and obviously mount your other bracket, which I will do when I get it. Plunger, etc. looks nice and free. It's in quite good nick, that side casing. So I'll sign off for now. I'm going to call it a day today because I thought he's on in a minute, and I'll upload this in a little while, probably tonight.